Good evening, everyone. I'm Sally Hogarty, president of the Orinda Association, one of the sponsors of tonight's forum, along with the League of Women Voters and One Orinda. And before we start, I just wanted to remind you that we do have cards for you to fill out with any questions. And we have these lovely ladies, one from One Orinda and from the League, who will pick them up and bring them down here to, there she is, Marion, who will be collecting all the questions. And let me see what else we have. If you missed the City Council Forum last week, it is available online at the Orinda News website and also the Orinda Association website, and I believe also the League of Women Voters. It's all over the place. It's on YouTube. Anyway, if you want some exact addresses in which to get that, see me afterwards. And this one will also be recorded and available on those sites, and it's also being broadcast via Zoom, so we welcome our Zoom audience as well as our audience here. And now, so that we can get going, I want to introduce our moderator from the League, Ann Flynn.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the Orinda Association, the Orinda News, the League of Women Voters, and did I get that right? We're presenting candidates running for the Orinda Union School District Board of Governors. There are 3 open seats and 5 candidates. In alphabetical order, the candidates are Michelle Chang, Etta Collins-Coleman, Linda Delahunt, Eve Phillips, and Katie Shogan. The League is a non-partisan organization that does not support or oppose any candidate. We are here tonight as part of our key mission to educate and inform voters. As your moderator, I neither live nor vote in the district. This forum is being shown live online and recorded and to be replayed on the League's YouTube channel, the Orinda Association, and many more, as Sally said. We ask that the audience members do not record audio or video so as not to have misleading partial segments of our program. So please silence your cell phones now, and I don't expect to see anybody using a cell phone during the program. I want to ask you in advance not to cheer or applaud any statement, because if one person starts it, then somebody else feels like they have to do it. It makes my job difficult, and it takes time away from the candidates. So please, no audience participation. Before the program began, the names of tonight's candidates were selected at random to determine opening speaking order. Closing statements will be in the reverse order. Each candidate will give 1.5-minute opening remarks and then 1.5-minute closing statement at the end. After the opening statements, we'll proceed to the question and answer segment of the program, in which I will ask questions that you here in the audience have turned in. The questions can be written on 3x5 cards available by League members that are walking around the room. When you finish one, you can just hold it up. We'll try and collect it or bring it down here to our Marion, who will organize them. Many people have the same question, so we group questions together to be able to cover a topic more thoroughly. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question, and if they wish, if they wish to answer it, of course they will. We have a timer visible to the candidates, so speakers will see a yellow card, if you'll hold up your yellow card, when you have 15 seconds of your time remaining, and at the end you'll see a red card, and I expect you just to finish the sentence that you're speaking, not start a new thought. Now we'll proceed with 1.5-minute opening statements, beginning with Michelle Chang.
Good evening. Thank you to everyone who made this event possible and who all are here tonight to be part of this very important democratic process. My name is Michelle Chang, and I am currently a public school educator and an Orinda mom. This is my 25th year in public education. I started as a teacher. I was the founding director of a successful after-school program. I was the founding principal of a California distinguished school, and I now work supporting school principals, their communities, and collaborating with every department in the school district that I work in to support our students. I have lived in Orinda for 13 years in my husband's family home that they moved into in the late 1960s. I have a daughter who is now in 7th grade at OAS and has attended Orinda school since kindergarten. I have volunteered in Orinda schools in a number of capacities, inside and outside of the classroom, and am currently on the OIS and the District Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I also volunteer as an advisor for Mindful Littles in Orinda, and I've hosted multiple Orinda night outs at my home, which has helped to build our neighborhood community and create protocols to keep our neighborhoods safe. I know that our experiences in school have a great impact on our lives. Because of this, I have always worked to make decisions that supported every student in the classrooms and schools that I have served. I'm running for Orinda School Board to use my experience and my collaboration skills to build on our strong foundation of academic excellence, ensure that our children are supported and feel a sense of belonging, make sure that all voices in our community are heard, then use their feedback to make informed decisions and build bridges with our community to best support our schools.
Thank you. Linda Delahunt.
Good evening. My interest in running for school board is to assist in providing excellent leadership to this school district and to sustain the Orinda Union School District as an exemplary district. Not on? Oh, thank you. Excellence is difficult to achieve and preserve. The recent award granted to OIS of Blue Ribbon School status is one of the highest honors that can be bestowed on a school, and it's evidence that the excellence embedded in this school district's programs is well worth preserving. On a personal level, I believe I have the capability of preserving the high quality of education in this district by virtue of my personal background. I have been a member of the Orinda community for approximately 42 years and have raised 2 children and 3 grandchildren in this district. I have a long history of associations with Orinda schools as a parent, a volunteer, a Girl Scout leader, and a teacher. Throughout my own children's school lives, I, like many of you, spent many long hours volunteering. As a young parent, I served on the Glorietta and OIS Parents Board. I was instrumental on the EFO board as well. I was a teacher in the district and spent time on the Sleepy Hollow staff teaching and coordinating the Sleepy Hollow GATE program, and I worked with other GATE coordinators from Glorietta and Delray to write many of the GATE units that were used in Orinda for years.
Thank you, Linda. Next, Eve Phillips.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to all of the groups that hosted this very important event tonight. I'm Eve Phillips, and the last time I sat up here, I was very pregnant with my twins, who are now set to be TKers next year, so time marches on. Let me share a little bit about myself and why I'm running for school board. I grew up here in La Orinda, attended Miramani, and left the Bay Area to study computer science at MIT. I then embarked on a career in technology with a broad focus in innovation, including both mental health and education technology. I currently work at Google as a product executive on a healthcare software team. But my public service career took off when I was elected to the Orinda City Council in 2014. Like many of you at the time, I wondered why our downtown had lots of empty lots and buildings, and that exploration led me down a path that resulted in a council seat. And now, similarly, I have my oldest in 1st grade at Sleepy Hollow, and 3 more kids, including those twins, who will be following her. And I was alerted to some of the challenges that currently exist in our schools, educational, financial, mental health, by some of our community members. I thought perhaps my background in a similar role would help me hit the ground running, and my experience driving community transparency through that role on the board would be helpful after such a tumultuous pandemic period. And so here I am tonight as a candidate and asking for your vote. I look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Shogun.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Orinda Association, the Orinda News, and the Orinda Network of Education for hosting this forum. Thank you to the public for attending and viewing this event. Our schools are truly the foundation of our community. I am running for the Orinda School Board because I believe it is critically important to maintain and strengthen our public schools so that they continue to provide an excellent and comprehensive education for all students. I have the experience and perspective to lead OUSD in this effort. My experiences as a parent, educator, policymaker, and volunteer make me well qualified to serve. I am a former California public school teacher and administrator. I have school board experience, having previously served on the boards of both a public school district and a private international school. As an OUSD parent, I have volunteered extensively in and for our schools, giving me insight into the district's unique needs. I am committed to providing rigorous, relevant, and differentiated curriculum and programming. This includes sustaining the broad range of programs that enhance our children's education and develops the whole child. It also encompasses providing a safe and inclusive learning environment. Our teachers are at the core of our schools. I will focus on recruiting, retaining, and supporting excellent educators. I will deploy our public funds carefully while advocating for adequate resources to support the high-quality education our community expects. I am a diplomatic and impartial leader. I value data-driven decision-making, collaboration, and strong communication. If given the opportunity, I look forward to serving my community as a board trustee.
Thank you. Etta Collins Coleman.
Hello, I'm Etta Collins Coleman. I'm running to ensure OUSD remains an outstanding school district for our children and families. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to all the community partners for this wonderful forum. As a proud Orinda resident and mother of 3 daughters, 8th, 4th, and preschool grades, I feel deeply connected to our schools. I've enjoyed serving in a number of roles through the years where I've worked collaboratively with our current school board and administration at Del Rey, Wagner Ranch, OIS, and on the district level. Through this work, I've been fortunate to collaborate with many outstanding local leaders who have since endorsed me for this seat. When elected, I will also draw on my professional and academic background to meaningfully contribute to our school community. My 20-plus years in policy and communications will help me build consensus and partnerships. I've also served as a professor in the School of Public Communication at American University. I have the temperament and experience, and I can make complex decisions to serve on this board and work as a collaborative thought partner to ensure continued academic excellence for our Orinda schools. I've been a student, teacher, and a community leader, which gives me a unique ability to appreciate the contributions of the many individuals and groups in our school community. To be clear, 3 things I believe are important for our district are in refining and enhancing our already robust academic excellence, broadening our mental wellness program offerings, and enhancing the budget to ensure it remains fiscally sound. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for questions. I'll do my best to ensure that each candidate has the opportunity to answer each question. So in the audience, as you're thinking of questions and writing them down, please don't direct them to one person because I have to ask everyone the same question. Personal attacks are not permitted. Statements made about other candidates must be in the public record or they are not allowed. Our first question goes to Linda Delahunt. The district is exploring another parcel tax or bond for the 2024 ballot. Currently, homeowners pay for 2 parcel taxes and 2 bonds, in addition to the Acalanes High School District parcel tax and bonds. While the community prides itself on its schools, it's also responsibility of the school board to be fiscally responsible. How do you propose to be transparent and accountable to the community about the OUSD budget, especially in today's challenging economy? Ms. Delahunt?
Today's economy is really challenging. Social Security just came out today with a COLA that would be 8.7%, which is the highest in 40 years. So that tells us things are not well. I tend to be extremely forthright, and I feel better when everyone is on a level playing field. I'm not a person that attempts to hide facts, and in fact, I like to share them. So this vibrant community can use all. I'd like to use all the brains together to collaborate and come up with solutions. And I realize that we're getting short of funds. I saw that the district did encroach on their some of their reserves last year, and I do believe that Orinda is assisting in a great way. And I read a piece this morning about Santa Barbara Unified, who is actually investing their reserves. So that's another possibility.
Thank you very much. Next, Ms. Coleman.
I believe in good governance. I truly believe in it, and it's important for us to have that here at the school board. And with that, as an advocate for several organizations in my day job, I believe in transparency and making sure taxpayers understand and know where their money is going, and that we are accountable for their monies as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Phillips?
you. A couple of things I think I'd like to add. One is the need for this parcel tax, and that really gets back to the realities of the budget. We have some of the lowest per pupil funding in the state, and so that needs to be made up for somewhere if we want to be competitive on teacher salaries, where we are already close to the bottom as well for this particular area. So we need to make up this big gap. You already heard we're already dipping into our reserves, and our reserves are arguably at a pretty unfortunate state. So we need to have an honest conversation with the community if we want to maintain the kinds of ability to recruit great teachers. We need to figure out how to pay them, and so that either needs to come from more funds or cutting back in other areas. And if you look at the budget, there's not a lot of other areas. But absolutely, in anything that we do, figuring out how we can communicate this well to the community will be critical.
Thank you. Ms. Shogun?
A lot has already been said about this, and I echo what some of my other fellow candidates have already said. I think communication is key, and explaining our budget and our funding model to the public is especially important, and has already actually been going on frequently at the most recent board meetings. Our district receives some of the lowest funds from the state, in the state of California, and we rely, almost 25% of our budget, we rely on local sources for that, which is a combination of parcel tax and one Orinda. That's our reality. There's also inflation, and there's also a need to offer competitive packages to our teachers to retain and recruit the very best for our district. So those are the realities. If I was on the board, I would believe in continuing to be transparent about the budget and where our funding is coming from and what our shortfalls are. And I believe there's a lot to do to attract and retain teachers in this district, and to face the reality of our funding model.
Thank you. And Ms. Chang?
One of my priorities is to provide clear and consistent communication within our school communities and within our greater Orinda community. And asking folks to support a bond measure is important because, like my fellow candidates have said, we're one of the lowest funded school districts in California. So it's important that we do have other streams of finances for our schools, and having our community understand why that's needed is important. So building that communication, being very transparent about what it is that we need the money for, so that our community has faith in supporting bonds and measures that we put forth in our school district.
Thank you. Now, our next question, the first person to answer it will be Ms. Coleman. The question is, communication can be a hot-button topic. What are some things the district gets right on communication, and what can it do to communicate more effectively with stakeholders?
Thank you for that question. I do believe the district is doing an amazing job with communications. We receive communications from the superintendent, from the principals, from the parents club on a regular basis. And there's always room for improvement, right? No one is ever perfect, no district is ever perfect. And communications-wise, I know some people don't like over-communication, but when it comes to children and education, I think that's wonderful, and it's important in order to continue that academic excellence that we expect here in Orinda. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Phillips?
I actually agree. I think the board, or the school district and the parents clubs do a great job of communicating. As a parent in the schools, I think you get quite a bit of information about what's going on and really do get a feel for what's happening. The only things I think I might add to that are sometimes it is interesting to know what's going on at some of the other schools, and that can be more challenging as a parent in one particular school. And so maybe making that easier so you can feel like you're part of this broader community, as well as for people outside of that are not current parents. And the other part was just actually for the board itself. Those communications require a separate sign up, and it might be useful, particularly as we're talking about things like budgets and parcel taxes and such, to make sure that information also gets out to the parents who are a very important stakeholder.
Thank you. Ms. Chang? Communication. Would you like me to read the question again?
Sure.
Communication can be a hot-button topic. What are some things the district gets right in communication, and what can it do to communicate more effectively with stakeholders?
I agree with the other candidates. The superintendent does a fantastic job of keeping us apprised of what's happening in the schools, in all of the schools, and so do our schools that we're in, and the Parents Club. So in that part, that's very great. However, I think that other ways of communication are important. So some people don't often read the emails that they get because their boxes are full. So what other ways can we work? How might we, as a school district, work to provide communication in other forms? I know there's coffees, there are newspaper articles. Do we use social media as well as we could? And even our website. When I've searched for information on the website, I've found that there's some information that I needed that's lacking or hard to find.
Thank you. Ms. Shogun?
So I agree with some of my fellow candidates. I think that the district has done an excellent job most recently in communicating with families. Number one, they've adopted a new platform, Parent Square, and as a parent, I love it. It actually archives all those communications, so when you partially read them, you can go back and see them again. I think that streamlined things tremendously. There's a cadence to when I'm going to receive communications as a parent from the different groups, Parents Club, the district, the administration, teachers, et cetera, and I think that's been great. The second thing that I'd like to note is that the school board has agreed to continue offering their board meetings on Zoom. I think that's a silver lining that came out of COVID, is the ability to access those meetings from Zoom. I think that's great. And of course, they do still continue coffee mornings. In terms of additional communication, I know other groups in the district, particularly One Orinda and the Parents Clubs, have started having more frequent roundtables, and that could also be another way to encourage discourse and communication.
Thank you. And Ms. Delahunt?
You know, I really can't add that much. My colleagues have been excellent in overviewing the topic. I get most of my communication through my daughter and my grandchildren, so I'm really very well versed on what's going on at the schools, and the amount of communication they get is almost overwhelming. I mean, it's just incredible. I've really never seen anything quite like it. I think perhaps there could be, I read a lot of my electronics news in the morning, and I know the La Miranda Patch is quite has a good presence online, and it would be kind of nice to read about schools maybe on the Patch, just an overview. That's the only thing I could really think of that might extend the, the breadth of the communication. So
Thank you very much. Our next question, the first speaker will be Ms. Phillips. What do you think are the school district's greatest strengths, and what are the greatest challenges?
On the strengths side, I mean, I really actually think it's the community in which we live and the involvement of, in particular, the parents, but also the broader community as well. I've heard, requests and interest from, people who are maybe no longer parents in the community to start getting more involved with the skills, particularly if they have things to offer back. And that is just such a huge benefit to the children and to just the overall dynamic that we have here in Orinda. But as far as challenges, I mean, we touched on it before with the question about the bond measure. I mean, that we can't get away from the economics of what it costs to educate our children to the level that I think we've grown to expect. And unfortunately, the finances are in many ways working against us, whether we're talking about inflation or the competition with other districts that may have other sources of financing that we just don't get. And so that's something we'll have to continue to focus on.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chang?
Thank you. So one of the strengths is our academic excellence in Orinda. Our schools are great, and they continue to be great, and my daughter has such a strong foundation and is thriving in middle school now, so we have that. Another strength is community support. So families and even Orinda residents are willing to do a lot for our schools, and that's really an awesome thing. Our challenges, one of them has to do with finances, and it's really retaining and recruiting and retaining teachers, because we don't pay our teachers as much as other districts that are nearby. So in this economy, it's hard to live as a teacher, period. But in this economy, if our wages are low, it's going to be a real big challenge for us to keep our teachers.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shogun?
Again, a lot has already been said that I would agree with. I think Orinda's strengths as a school district, first of all, is its high-performing schools. They do perform really well year over year, and that has a lot to do with the teachers and staff. We have really excellent, committed teachers and staff who have been in the district for a really long time, which says a lot in and of itself. The second are the broad offerings that we have in Orinda that have gone by the wayside in a lot of other public schools in California due to funding, and that is supported by the community. I think that's another one of our strengths that needs to be maintained here, and developing the whole child and producing good citizens in the world. And in terms of challenges, it's already been said, the budget is a challenge. We have less funding than other districts in the state, and we need to make up for that. And that affects a lot of things, including facility maintenance and class size and all the things that we want to keep for our kids. So I would name that as the top challenge for sure.
Thank you very much. Ms. Delahunt?
Okay, strengths. Orinda, of course, I just mentioned that OIS just received the Blue Ribbon Award. So the caliber of schools in this district is incredible. Orinda ranks 19 out of 1,873 districts in California. It ranks in the top 1% for math and reading. So it's by and far, I mean, it's an incredible school district, so I can't speak highly enough about the strengths. In terms of weaknesses, obviously, we have to keep our teachers happy, and we have to keep them nourished with a good salary. Of course, people have mentioned we have, a lower per pupil funding. I believe it's in the neighborhood of about $15,000 and a little bit of extra money a year for our student per pupil funding. But I would like to say that I would love to see a nanny education program for our TK students and our families. That would be something that might help.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And Ms. Coleman?
Thank you. Our strengths are many, and first of all would be the extracurricular activities, the academic excellence, the strong curriculum, the wonderful teachers that we have here, and when the district sees a need, they fill it. Just look at the partnership with Care Solis. They saw the issues around mental wellness in our students, and now we have mental wellness counselors in every school site. Challenges are many, of course. With the fiscal issue, we have teacher retention and recruitment. We want to continue to be innovative with our curriculum, and so we need to continuously expand and evolve. And then lastly, preparing our children to be global leaders. That fits in with innovation, making sure that our curriculum continues to be excellent and broad and challenging to our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, our next question will be answered first by Ms. Chang. What do you think is the greatest challenge in our school district regarding special education?
Special education is near and dear to my heart. Growing up, I had a brother who has an IEP, and he did not get the services he needed to be successful, and as an adult, he's not successful at all. So I've always strove to make sure that students with IEPs, all students really get what they need to be successful. I think a great challenge is hiring, recruiting, and giving professional development to the faculty and staff that work with our kiddos with IEPs, and making sure that they understand how best to support our students so that they can be successful. Another challenge is the inclusive nature of our schools. So I know that we have this wonderful parent-started program, DAWS, which is a Diverse Abilities Week coming up this week, and that's awesome. But we need to have DAWS every day, all day, so that our students who have IEPs, who have behavioral differences or learning differences, feel included and understood. So more education, more support, more professional development.
Thank you very much. Ms. Strogan?
I would echo what Michelle just said quite a bit. So first of all, staffing in special education department is always challenging, and it's especially challenging right now with overall staffing shortages. The teachers and staff that work with our special education students really need to be skilled at what they do to reach those students. So that's a challenge. The second is reaching true inclusion for those special education students. It's written into their IEPs that their needs are met in the least restrictive environment, but what that actually looks like in the classroom is a challenge. And so true inclusion is the goal, and that I think is something to continue to work on in the special education department. And then the last would be making sure that children are getting the right services, particularly around reading, so that if they're getting to those upper grades, they are still getting the support that they need.
Thank you. Ms. Phillips?
I will also here echo what some of the others have already said, because I tend to think about this in generally these same two buckets, which are, you know, the academic side of it and then the social side of it for these children. On the academic side, you know, obviously finding the right staffing and the right teachers is critical, and particularly and hard in these times of teacher shortages. But it is one place where I think perhaps, you know, technology can play a role, and finding other resources that we can bring to these kids could be very important for helping them continue to learn to the best of their abilities. And on the social side, I also wanted to echo that DAW is coming up next week. But I really actually liked what Michelle said about this is something that should be happening all of the time. And really, you know, all of our kids have, you know, areas where they have strengths and they have areas where they have special needs, and some may be more obvious than others. But we really want to build an overall community and environment where we can actually, you know, learn to be appreciative of what everybody brings to the table. And I think it's so important to start that in the very early years.
Thank you. And Ms. Coleman?
Yes, we have many challenges there. Paying our teachers, providing resources for the students and parents. Our staff are already very, very swamped with the necessary, with everything that's coming at them after the pandemic, and with the needs of our district. And so we have a small staff. We share our staff with the La Orinda community, with Moraga School District, and the other neighboring school districts. And so there are opportunities for us there in those challenges to seek out grants and other partnerships, not only with the county and the neighboring school districts, but in other ways with federal agencies as well. And I think that's an opportunity for us to look at to see what else is out there.
Thank you. Ms. Delahunt?
Now, special education always presents a challenge. Of course, the children need to be mainstreamed, and I believe that's something that has come up, you know, relatively recently. So obviously, the quality of the teacher makes tremendous difference. We have to hire and keep good teaching staff, and obviously good special education staff. The aides are extremely important. They're specialized, they need specialized training. The district needs to provide that specialized training. And then, of course, the psychological support is important on campus because the children need IEPs, they need to be monitored all the time. And then the mainstreaming is something that the main teacher in the classroom needs to coordinate with a special education teacher to provide the support. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Now, the next question, Ms. Coleman, you'll get the first to answer this one. And multiple people have written about this, so I'll kind of synthesize the question. Gun violence is a concern for our schools. Can the district do anything to address this concern? And another phrase is hardening our schools. So can you talk about gun violence, please?
Absolutely, thank you. As the only candidate with the Moms Demand Action Gun Sense candidate distinction, I've personally met with the Orinda Chief of Police to discuss protecting our schools from gun violence. As a priority, I will advocate for more education and safe gun storage. The state of California recently passed a law that mandates all school districts will have to distribute gun safety storage information education by May of 2023. But there's no reason we can't remind our families sooner that safe gun storage saves lives and is a law in Orinda. We passed that law in 2018. I'd advocate for expanded mental health support for our students and teachers to help prevent tragedies as well, and consider expanding the Sandy Hook Promise Say Something anonymous reporting system working well at the high school district to our OAS. This program allows students to call in anonymously if they are worried about a peer and or a threat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Delahunt?
Well, I think gun safety is part of the larger question, which is basically safety for our schools. Safety for our schools is obviously of paramount importance, and I think the first day of school, the first thing that needs to be addressed is how children are kept and remain safe on campus, and the gun safety piece is part and parcel with it.
Thank you. Ms. Phillips?
Yeah, I want to build on some of the comments from Ms. Coleman, because I actually sat on the council when we passed that law, and this is one of the places where I think a really strong relationship between the schools and the city can be very important, both in making sure that kind of policies and are aligned, and that you can work together to kind of provide this communication, because it's not just about sending this out to the parents of the students that are in those schools, but but other people in the community as well, so that these things are well understood. And then the other big big part of this, which we've touched on a bit here, is around providing the mental health resources to the students and to the broader community at large, because it's not just about our students, but the broader community, and continuing to invest in the things that the schools have been doing a great job on, whether it's around the wellness centers and the counselors that are now in place, but also ensuring that the high school districts and beyond have similar resources too.
Thank you. Ms. Chang.
Gun safety, gun violence is a multi-tiered approach in schools. First, there needs to be education in the schools. There needs to be wellness support on site for students. There needs to be a partnership with local law enforcement. And we need to create plans for critical incidents with expectations for all stakeholders. These plans need to be practiced regularly. And I have decades of experience in keeping schools safe. And I'm the only candidate who's been endorsed by the Contra Costa Deputy Sheriff's Association because they know that I am the candidate that will keep schools safe. And that is who is our local law enforcement is run by, is the Contra Costa Deputy Sheriff's Association. And having strong partnerships with law enforcement and keeping schools safe is very important to me.
Thank you. And Ms. Shogun.
To add on to what my fellow candidates have already said, I would say safety, particularly around gun safety and gun violence, is top of mind as a parent. It's top of mind for all the parents in the district and the rest of our community as well. So first of all, I would underscore the importance of the relationship between the district and the city, for starters, in enforcing safe gun storage and education around that. The second is a continued focus on mental health with both resources, anonymous tip line, but also access for students to receive mental health services if they need it. And then the third is to have a really strong response plan in place. I'm happy to hear that the district is undertaking a comprehensive safety plan review this year. That's one of their goals, and that certainly should include a response plan to an incident should one occur, although we all don't want that to happen.
Thank you very much. Our next question, Ms. Shogun, you'll answer this first. What's your plan to find and retain talented teachers?
So I care a lot about this a lot. Study after study shows that the most important piece of the academic and educational puzzle, if you will, is the teacher in front of the student. So I would do a few things. First of all, we have this is an excellent place to work, and we need to make sure that it stays that way. We need to support our teachers by offering excellent PD and training and development. The second is we need to be able to be on par in terms of our compensation packages. This, of course, is a difficult position to be in given our funding model and the complications there. But that is really important. Teachers need to feel like they can have a career and be paid for it and stay here. So we need to be competitive. Right now we are losing teachers to surrounding districts because they have better pay. So that is certainly something to consider. So those are two things. First of all, working conditions. Second of all, compensation.
Thank you. Ms. Phillips.
Yeah, I will just have to build on what was just said, but because I sort of think of it in two groups, right? There's everything you can do that isn't related to kind of the financial and the benefits package, and that's really how do you help the school district, from in whatever you can do from the board perspective, support a great culture where it's a great place to work. And whether that's supporting the superintendent, making sure that they can put in place the hires that they need so that the entire management chain for the teachers is one where they feel like they're valued, can communicate, can share things, and this is, I think, true all the way up to the board level. And I know when we each talked to the teachers, making sure that two-way communication was there was really important, both so that they could feel heard and that their ideas could have an audience, and so that we could learn along with them in the best ways to, really kind of govern the district. And then the other side, of course, is the financial side, and how do we're never going to be the top-paying district, but can we at least make sure that we're competitive with the other teachers' options nearby, and we're really kind of skating the bottom of that now between both the salaries and the benefits packages, and so that's where more creativity is necessary.
Thank you. Ms. Delahunt.
Well, I was a teacher for a number of years and a principal and a district administrator, and also I worked at the state level as a consultant for 10 years. So I do have a lot of experience with teachers, and basically teachers love to teach. I mean, their first love is teaching. And they know when they go into it that it's not, they're not going to be paid like a Silicon Valley engineer. However, they need competitive salaries, but they also need supportive environments. They love collaboration. They love to be trained properly. Parent volunteers in Orinda are incredible. The community is incredibly supportive, and that goes a whole long way to supporting, getting good teachers. The other thing is, if you got, job fairs are very, I don't know if Orinda participates in job fairs, but that's a great place to get teachers at the local universities. And if you really got desperate, you do intern programs, and I'm the product of an intern program. And that's a good one too. You offer teachers credentials as they give you back teaching in your district. So I don't think it's a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chang.
Another multi-tiered approach. So first off, showcasing the excellent working environment we have in Orinda schools. There's a lot of support for teachers. There's professional development. There's release days. There's a really collaborative community. We also, as other candidates said, we need to work on our competitive wages to pay our teachers more. And I would also, one of the things I would do too is to use my vast connections in public education to cultivate a pool of highly skilled candidates. After you've been in education for as many years as I have currently, I have a lot of people that I know who are in the business or who have family or friends who are wanting to enter the business. So I'd use that. And then last, I would like to create some opportunities for our non-teaching staff to enter the teaching profession through maybe a Pathways program or partnerships with the local universities.
Thank you. And Ms. Coleman.
Our district does an amazing job right now casting a wide net in recruiting teachers. However, we are challenged with our finances, as some of the candidates have said, and so paying the teachers at a market rate is equally important. We are losing candidates to other neighboring districts who can give and provide signing bonuses. We have options for teacher housing. I know it's been discussed at the City Council forum last week, and so that is an opportunity for us to really provide for the teachers so that we can retain them here, and then lastly, professional development opportunities as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question, Ms. Phillips, if you'd answer this one first. It's a combined question. Everybody has great ideas of how to spend money for education. There's no limit to good ideas. But we know that budgets are tight. Where would you want to allocate funds differently for better student outcomes? And that means removing money from some place to give it to something else. So where would you like to allocate funds differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think when you look at the school budget, the vast majority of it is for teachers, and I don't think, and for either salaries or benefits. So you're not likely to be able to take much from there and be able to maintain, I think, the levels of academic excellence that you want. The remaining areas that are more discretionary, and I'll put aside some of the bond funds that we can't change how we use some of those funds for buildings and such. Have a mix of things that are kind of consultants and books, and some of the repairs and some of the other elements. So there are potentially some things you could look at there, but I would hate to take away from funds for things like the wellness centers, for the counselors, for the special education. So these aren't budgets that have a whole lot of fat that's easy to go off and cut and say, I'm going to take this out. Sometimes the easiest things to look at, and none of these are easy, are do you want to defer certain maintenance on the schools in the physical plant, but then you still have to very much be very aware of what are the issues that are going to drive safety and student comfort, and if you go too far in that direction, you also take away from learning. So I'll pause there.
Thank you. Ms. Shogun.
So as Eve just said, about 80% of our budget goes towards people, salaries and benefits. And as we previously just discussed, our teachers are paid less than surrounding districts. So that's kind of a non-negotiable in terms of cutting into that. I would say could be creative solutions to using some of our one-time funding. So our parents are very generous, our community is very generous, and the district works in collaboration with One Orinda, but our facilities are in need of work, and there's a possibility that some of those funds could be used more effectively as one-time projects in that way. If I was on the board, I would dig into that and look at that. But again, I don't think there's a lot of fat in this budget. In fact, I don't think there's really any. It's more about using the resources we have more creatively so that those reoccurring funds that we receive from the state can be used for that 80% of the budget, and the rest can be used for all the other things we need to provide.
Ms. Chang?
So a lot of what my fellow candidates have said, I think it's difficult because a big percentage of our budget goes towards people, and we are in the business of people and supporting students with people. I'd have to take a real critical look at our budget and see exactly where it is that we do have any extra funding, and I hazard to say we probably don't have any extra funding. So for me, it would be more about thinking of other ways to raise money, to bring our community closer to our schools so that they can understand the needs. And we have such a generous community of folks who don't have kids in schools, and they donate money to all kinds of causes. So bringing those folks into our schools to show them the need and having them to support the needs that we have in our schools.
Thank you very much. Let's see, where are we? Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Coleman. I get lost.
Thank you. You know, we are already using our reserves right now in the district. We are hamstrung. And to cut extracurricular workshops or facilities or anything would devastate our children. And we don't want that to happen. We're all here because we love Orinda schools and we want to continue that academic excellence. And so that is a very challenging question. But, you know, I would work very closely with the district staff to see what is possible and what won't harm the children and their success the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Delahunt?
Well, first of all, you know, I really believe in consensus building. And so I think that before you do anything, you have to do a needs assessment. Obviously, you need to talk to, you know, the people at the schools and figure out what it is they value and what it is they don't value, or value less. And again, the budget is very tight. We all know that. In taking a look at the budget, you know, my personal feeling is you might be able to cut in the consultant area. I don't know the contracts. I did notice that the consultant budget is relatively large relative to the other parts of the budget, but again, you have to see the individual contracts to really peel it back and see, you know, if there's an area. But again, you go back to the consensus. It's all about the needs assessment from the school. But my big thrust would be to raise money and not to cut. There are lots of state funding sources that go for naught. I mean, people don't have the time to research them, and as a state person, I do know, thanks, that there is more money somewhere.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next question is going to be handled first by Ms. Shogun. Some were upset that schools took an overly cautious stance relative to reopening schools during COVID. Do you think the board should have advocated harder for the students to come back to campus?
So no school district across the country had a playbook for how to navigate a pandemic. And I really appreciate the service of the board during that really challenging time for absolutely everybody. They needed to make decisions with restrictions that were outside of their control often. It's very easy to look back and make the call in hindsight, which was not something they could do. I think at this point there are lessons to take from that experience. For one, I think we as parents and as a community, we all recognize the importance of in-person learning for our students. And there's also work to be done to address gaps in learning, both in academics and social development. But I believe this board worked very hard during that time sometimes with things outside of their control.
Thank you. Ms. Jang.
I was in the central office. That was my first year in the central office during the pandemic, and I know how hard it was to open schools. I often would say to my colleagues, well, you know, my daughter's school district, they did this, or they're doing this. And Orinda schools did such an amazing job of opening with the information that they had. So I think they did the best job that they could. Like Katie said, it's easy to look back with hindsight and say, oh, we could have done things better. But it was a pandemic. None of us knew how to work with it. There were mandates that we had no control over, and I feel that they did the best job that they could. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. Ms. Coleman.
The district did an amazing job. The pandemic was difficult for everyone, and we learned some critical lessons. What we need to do is take those lessons and apply them to the future. Remote learning, thank you to all the families, parents, caregivers who also contributed to the success of our students. And the partners in technology who helped that effort to enable students in technology and the right resources. I think not being in school was isolating, of course, dislocating and affecting students in a myriad of ways. We have the resources, however, to take all of that into effect as we go forward. And I think it's important that we don't forget the kids who fell through the cracks, right? And the pandemic had a disparate impact on them. So it's very important to look at those postmortems to assess and as we assess to move forward and use those lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Delahunt?
I think this community was incredibly lucky to have the infrastructure that it did have in technology. The COVID response would have never happened in such an illustrious way had we not had the technology in place, and that goes to the #1 status of this school district, as a major high achiever. Surrounding districts, it was almost pathetic. I mean, just a few miles away, you've got districts that only can dream of technology. So I think we were incredibly, fortunate, and I think it went extremely well. And I know there were a lot of complaints, but then, look around you. So should you go back early? Should we have gone back earlier? I think that's an individual, almost a family decision. In my particular case, my family was delighted to have stayed home as long as we were able to. So thank you.
Ms. Phillips?
Yeah, I'll just add on to the thanks to the board that had to work through this with incredibly, challenging decisions to be made and very strong voices on all sorts of sides of the issue, and really without enough information to be able to nobody had a crystal ball in terms of what was going to happen. The other thing that's been kind of lightly commented on here is a lot of the opening was outside of their hands. Unless you wanted to go against your state and county mandates that were put in place at the time, which can open yourself up to all sorts of legal liability. There in many cases the hands were tied. So sure, if we could have done so in retrospect, knowing now kind of some of the impacts to mental health and to educational learning, it would have been nice. But there were, I can't say that necessarily different decisions would have been made. In sitting on the board. So.
Thank you very much. Well, we have come to the end of our question time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for contributing such interesting questions, and thank you for participating so enthusiastically. Now each candidate will have a 1.5-minute time for a closing statement, and we will begin with Etta Collins-Coleman.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who made this event possible. I appreciate the opportunity to have this important dialogue. As a proud Orinda resident and mother of 3 daughters, I feel deeply connected to our schools. I'm ready to serve our community as the next member of the OUSD board to ensure our kids have what they need to be successful and to be global leaders. I have a vested interest in the success of all of our children here in Orinda, and I'm ready to contribute to the legacy and sustainability of this community. I have the temperament and experience, and I can make complex decisions to serve on this board and work as a collaborative thought partner to ensure continued academic excellence for our schools. I'm an experienced leader, teacher, and team player. I bring extensive knowledge of the regulatory landscape and believe working together, we can ensure a strong budget, improve mental wellness, and enhance academic excellence, results that matter to our students, families, and broader Orinda community. I have a proven track record in excellence in leadership within policy and education. I fully believe that the OUSD has the power and potential to better serve our students and parents in the Orinda community. I will bring my experience in public and private practice and my expertise in public administration to the policymaking body of OUSD. Above all, we must continue to strive toward our common objective, which is to enhance the excellence, legacy, and sustainability of Orinda schools. Thank you for your support so that our kids' dreams move from possibility to reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Katie Shogun.
Thank you to the sponsors and organizers of tonight's forum. These forums are a true public service and a model of civic engagement. Thank you to everyone who attended in person and those that viewed from afar. Thank you to my fellow candidates for joining me for discussion and conversation about many important topics. Orindans care deeply about their community, and that is evident again this evening. I am very grateful to live and raise my children in Orinda. It is beautiful, safe, and friendly. It's a community that has valued education and taken pride in its schools for a very long time. It is also a community that is engaged and active. This town runs on volunteerism. I love Orinda's can-do spirit. It has been a source of joy to work for our Orinda schools as a classroom and school volunteer and as a fundraiser via the Parents Club and One Orinda. I have the experience and perspectives to now serve our schools and broader community in a different capacity as a trustee on the OUSD board. I am humbled by the support I have received from so many community members, from old friends, new friends, fellow school volunteers, neighbors, and state and local leaders. I am proud to have the support of all 5 members of the current OUSD board, as well as many former board members, Orinda City Council members, and the Orinda Education Association. Our district has a lot to be proud of. As with all things, there is always room for improvement and growth. I am qualified to lead, ready to do the work, and up to the task. Thank you.
Thank you. Eve Phillips.
Thank you. I also wanted to start by thanking my fellow candidates for a great discussion and the audience for asking important questions and taking part in what is a very important democratic process. In wrapping up, I wanted to leave you with a couple questions that I've been thinking quite a bit about. One is about the richness of the parent community that we have here. How can we put that to work to continue to innovate and experiment within our schools to foster new models of learning? I'd love to continue the ongoing conversations with teachers and the Parents Club to see how we can keep pushing the envelope on that front. Also, despite some of our DEI efforts, our schools still have a reputation for social exclusivity and clickiness. That's been true ever since before I attended Miramani. What if we were actually able to send the first class to Miramani that didn't carry that reputation with it? How could we get there, and what would that look like? In my professional career, I've been told that I'm known for vision, for listening, and for the breadth of my relationships across the field. And from my time on the City Council, I've learned how to drive new agenda items, ask critical questions to staff, and ensure that the community is heard in the discussions that we've been having. I think I can bring all of these aspects to this role to the benefit of our schools, and that's why I believe that I'm endorsed as well by a broad section of our community, including each member of the current school board, each member of the current City Council, and many others. And with that, I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Delahunt.
I thank you for for your time and interest, and I hope you will remember my name when you vote. I believe out of all candidates running for board, I have the most varied and longest tenure of experience in the public schools. Out of all the candidates running, my professional background includes a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of the Pacific in 2002. I also hold an undergraduate degree from UC Berkeley, an elementary teaching credential, and an administrative credential. I'm a member of Cal Alumni, the Rotary Club, and a lifelong member of the California CTA. I've spent 38 years in California schools as a teacher, principal, district administrator, and California State Department of Education consultant. I spent 10 years under 3 state superintendents in the State Department of Education, and assisted in creation of policy for the state schools. I was initially appointed to the state level by Superintendent Delane Easton. In addition, because I have 10 years of experience at the state level at the State Department, I feel like I have a unique understanding of how to bring resources to your schools. Perhaps most importantly, however, is the fact that at this point in my life, I'm retired, and I do have the time to devote to the job. Time is a gift, and I'm willing to give my gift to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle Chang.
Mahalo for giving me the opportunity to share tonight. As a board member, my overarching priority for Orinda schools is to ensure that they continue to provide the great education they are known for by building on the strong foundation of academic excellence in our schools, and to ensure that all students are supported through rigorous and engaging curriculum that builds on our diverse cultures and the needs of the whole child. While doing this, we must also ensure that our students, our teachers, and our staff are safe by working within the school community on prevention and mitigation measures through partnerships with local first responders to create safe spaces and safe practices for critical incidents. My current experience as a classroom teacher, a principal, and a central office leader will allow me to be a reality check on policies at the board and in the district. I know how things really work in the classrooms, at a school site, and in the central office. I want to bring that knowledge and my passion for public school education to Orinda schools. As a current public school educator with more than 2 decades of relevant experience, I am highly qualified to be an effective school board member. I want to work in partnership with my community to build on the strengths of our district and to tackle our areas of growth with fresh ideas. I would be honored to have your support. Please join my endorsers, Senator Dianne Feinstein, State Treasurer Fiona Ma, Attorney General Rob Bonta, Senator Steve Glazier, President Pro Tem of the California State Senate Emeritus Don Parada, the La Orinda Democratic Club, the Contra Costa County Deputy Sheriff's Association, Orinda residents, teachers, and others in supporting me to be the first Asian American and Pacific Islander on the Orinda School Board. We need a seat at the table.
Thank you very much. These are your 5 candidates for 3 seats on the Orinda Union School District Board of Governors. Thank you all for running. It is a huge effort to put your name out there and to do this work, and I admire you for doing it. So thank you for your attention and participation in the democratic process. For further information about candidates, issues, and voting, please refer to votersedge.org, the League of Women Voters information site, and be sure to vote on November 8 or earlier. Thank you very much.